Having an introverted temperament is a situation where an individual is encouraged, or sometimes even pressured, by social environments and modern societal dynamics to be extroverted from the day they are born. The modern world is like a stage where speaking loudly, being constantly accessible, and having extensive social networks are marketed as criteria for success. However, as a psychological reality, introversion is an inherently valuable and profound trait, and it is biologically and psychologically impossible to completely change this fundamental temperamental structure. An introverted individual's attempt to force themselves to become an extrovert can be as exhausting as a fish trying to walk on land. Therefore, true development for the individual lies in recognizing the unique strengths this personality offers, accepting them as talents, and building their life accordingly. The way people manage their social energy is the most fundamental differentiator that determines their temperament type. This is not merely a preference. It is also related to how the nervous system responds to stimuli. Due to the dynamics of extroverted individuals, extroverts draw their energy from the outer world. Being in crowded environments, engaging in intense social interactions, and contacting many new people every day feeds them. They feel more alive and present this way. For them, solitude can mean the depletion of their energy. The dynamics of introverted individuals work differently. Introverts draw their energy from their inner world, from silence, and from depth. These individuals are not people who completely avoid social relations or dislike people. However, they are quite selective when spending their energy. Rather than crowded and superficial environments, deep bonds and quality conversations established with fewer people are an energy-renewing process for them, whereas crowded environments are an energy-draining activity. In terms of social renewal preferences, an extrovert might choose to relax by going to a crowded party after a stressful day, while for an introverted individual, staying at home alone to read a book, listen to music, or watch a movie is much more restorative and enjoyable. This situation is not a social phobia, but a mental recharging preference. Introverted individuals possess characteristic advantages that are hard to notice in a noisy world, but have a significantly large impact. These advantages make them unrivaled, especially in fields requiring deep focus and analysis. One of the most striking features of introverts, high empathy skills and deep listening ability, stems from their high sensitivity in understanding the moods, subtexts, and unspoken emotions of the people around them. Their emotional sensors are so developed that they can easily capture gestures, changes in tone of voice, and micro-expressions in their social environment. Thanks to their ability to listen with presence, when someone explains their problem, the introverted person does not just hear the words. They personally feel the emotional process the other person is going through. Being there with all their attention and spiritual presence makes the other person feel understood and valued. Independence and strong inner motivation are other important characteristics. While the motivation of extroverts is generally fed by approval, applause, and feedback from the outside world, introverts determine their route with their own inner compass. Thanks to their independence from external approval, the thoughts of others or societal expectations do not create as decisive a pressure on an introverted individual as they do on extroverts. With their long-term determination, even if the opinions of other people affect them momentarily, they find the strength to stand against the social current by listening to their own value judgments and inner voice in the general flow of their lives. As the architects of scientific and intellectual contribution, when we examine human history, we see that most of the great leaps that moved civilization forward came from introverted minds working quietly. Thanks to their stubborn work discipline, they show the patience to work on the subject they believe in for years, without paying attention to criticism in the initial stages when scientific discoveries are not understood or are belittled by society. The ability to focus deeply and be alone allows one to think uninterruptedly on a subject for days or months. At the root of many of the technological and scientific advancements we have today lies the patience and mental depth shown in these quiet rooms. The state of being at peace with oneself makes solitude a luxury rather than a deprivation for introverts. Spending time on their own is a necessity as they see solitude as a long-lost friend. When they are alone, they feel as if they have met with a friend they missed. When they have to stay in crowds for a long time due to the necessities of social life, they get tired and want to return to their own mental fortresses, their inner worlds, at the first opportunity. This inner richness makes them resilient individuals who are less affected by external conditions. Regarding business life and success, the popular perception is that the one who speaks the most is the most competent. However, actual performance usually works the opposite way of this perception. Two basic profiles generally stand out in work environments. The first are those who are constantly on stage, marketing every small task they do as a great success, but remaining weak in production. The second are those who stand quietly in their corner, but ensure the system runs without a hitch, producing constantly. Introverted individuals generally act with a productivity-oriented approach and the principle of less talk, more work, and for them, action is always more valuable than words. The biggest challenge of this temperamental structure in professional life is the marketing disadvantage, which stems from their shyness in announcing their achievements. Even if they achieve great things, because they do not market them, they can sometimes remain in the shadow of their less competent but noisier colleagues. Yet, in specialized fields requiring depth and zero tolerance for error, such as technical knowledge, in-depth research, strategic planning, art, software, and medicine, the success rate of introverted individuals is much higher. The understanding of social relations and friendship for introverted individuals is based on quality rather than quantity and is completely opposite to the number of followers logic of modern social media. For them, a relationship is a matter of spiritual investment and trust. Within a narrow but deep circle, they usually have only one or two very close friends. For them, a list of 100 people consisting of superficial acquaintances cannot take the place of a single true friend. They act selectively when establishing relationships with the principle of time-based loyalty. However, once a bond of trust is established, they put immense effort into that relationship. This is why it is very common to see deep-rooted friendships in the lives of introverted people that have lasted 20 or 30 years, coming from childhood and never breaking. Confidantship and trust are essential for them. Their inner worlds are like a palace of secrets, and instead of opening up to everyone, they only open their doors to those they value. This is why the people in their lives are not transitory figures, but permanent companions. In conclusion, succumbing to the perception of the necessity of being extroverted imposed by society is the greatest injustice an introverted individual can do to themselves. Introversion is by no means a social phobia that needs to be treated, or a flaw or deficiency that needs to be improved. On the contrary, introversion is a high-level temperamental trait that includes abilities such as thinking deeply, seeing the background of events, being an effective listener, high-level focusing, and establishing unwavering empathy. In today's fast, superficial, and noisy world, the calmness and depth offered by introverted individuals are of vital importance for the balance of society. It should not be forgotten that many of the leaders, scientists, and artists who changed the course of history were fed by this silent power. An introvert who embraces their own nature can shake the world without making noise.